Chapter 13. They were just hungry. Now, our three men had just left the bordering town of Anthony, Texas. They were riding side by side when Joam said to Wanyanyekevu, "Now, everything west of El Paso is dangerous territory. What was once called Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and the southernmost part of Idaho and Montana is known as No Man's Land." Jonathan interrupted. "North of No Man's Land is nothing but a blanket of ice that reaches the North Pole and those damn Abenians. I'm told they live in these cold-ass places by the millions. Them motherfuckers love cold weather." Joam gave Jonathan a funny look. "Ain't nobody asked for your 2 cents," Wanyanyekevu said calmly. "It's okay. All I know, or shall I say read, is that the indigenous people occupy all of old Arizona and the southernmost part of Nevada, and they called it Almorican. It is sometimes called the Mexim, and even Yelva land, which means bare land. They lived amongst each other in peace and harmony. Choctaw, Apache, Navajo, Ute, Cheyenne, Sioux, and many others, and they refused to call themselves anything else." Looking at Jonathan, Wanyanyekevu said, "Even Wakatilian." Jonathan jokingly said, "Hell, they can call themselves anything they want to, but to this world, they are still nothing more than just Wakatilians." Joam shook his head at Jonathan. "As I was saying, there were a few spots here and there that were considered okay, but the lack of water, vegetation, but mainly because of the illegal activities. It's been abandoned for centuries, so it simply became known as No Man's Land or Nowhere." Jonathan interrupted Joam. "When did your ass started talking all nice and shit, no matter what one would call it or some called it, it was a ruthless place where there are no rules." Wanyanyekevu said to them both, "Sabaoth has sent me here, and I am protected. What I didn't know was that California and Washington were under the sea and replaced with strips of islands." Joam shook his head. "Yeah, man, that's been about 5 years now," Jonathan shouted. "Man, y'all must have been living under those Louisiana rocks. That damn San Andreas fault line gave in and said, 'Fuck it.'" Wanyanyekevu stopped his horse, saying, "Why are you two going to New Mexico if it's that dangerous?" Jonathan smiled. "He just told you it's not all bad, plus we're prepared," as he upholstered his gun. "See." As they approached the ghost town of Anthony, New Mexico, the three young men rode ever so carefully through this town, not knowing what to expect or if anyone or anything was around. Joam, looking around, said, "This is creepy. Have y'all noticed the farther we go, the denser it gets with trash and these ancient old cars and buildings? The town on the Texas side was spread out and clean, but this one, just a mile apart from each other, everything is closer together?" Jonathan said. "Yes," Wanyanyekevu replied. "I have never seen a place this big without one single soul. If it was the forest, I could understand, but there are many buildings here and not a soul around." Joam pointed out to Wanyanyekevu. "When the Abenians built these bubbles, or whatever you want to call them, they built them for all major cities with a population of about, I don't know, maybe 250,000 or more, which were called micropolitan or micro areas. Then they said something about wasting energy or something like that and wanted everyone to move where the majority of the population existed. They abandoned many smaller cities, especially in the south, taking the bubble but leaving the cities. Of course, there are still a few micros but not so many as it once was." Joam was giving everyone a history lesson on the Abenian cities when Wanyanyekevu thought he saw a coyote. As he rode on, he heard howling, and Jonathan stopped his horse and said, "I don't think that's just a few coyotes." Sure enough, about 15 hungry coyotes emerged from the shadows and slowly advanced on them. Joam frantically searched one of his bags, saying, "Where is it? There was a B890 in this bag. Oh, here it is." He pulled out some kind of instrument. Wanyanyekevu grabbed a few throwing stars and Jonathan shouted, "Set the perimeters at 65 feet by 75 feet by 180 degrees. Joam shouted, "It doesn't have much energy." Jonathan shouted back, "Hit the fucking button." Joam pushed the button when at least 10 coyotes had already leaped toward them, knocking Joam off his horse. Wanyanyekevu threw a star at one coyote, killing it instantly, and was covered in blood. The dead animal's body seemed to anger the pack even more as they continued their approach. Time flashes back. Wanyan turned to Jom as he spoke. When the Abenians built these bubbles, or whatever you want to call them, they built them for all major cities with a population of about, Wanyan said, 250,000 or more. Wanyan shouted to Jom. I just had a vision. He pointed at a horse and continued. Inside that bag is AB-890 from one of the dead men. Set it for 65 feet by 75 feet by 108 degrees. Don't worry about the energy level. Following Wanyan orders, Jom grabbed the B-890 and set the perimeters as Wanyan had said. With the howling of coyotes in the background, Jom started moving quickly and immediately pushed the button. A force field had now covered all the men and the horses. Jom looked up to find that coyotes surrounded them. He saw some coyotes passing through the force field and turning into dust. We got about 20 to 25 minutes before this force field is gone. Then what? Wanyan, not wanting to kill the entire pack, noticed the pack leader. Wait! He shouted. Take us over there. Jom began to spoke as two. 3 coyotes attempted to jump through the force field and failed, but Wanyan interrupted him. I know what I'm doing! So, Jom took the force field as the men rode their horses step by step to stay in the force field to the location Wanyan pointed out. 15 minutes! Shouted Jom. The 3 men and their horses were in a corner. Okay, let me out of this thing, said Wanyan. Jom turned the device off for just enough time for Wanyan to clear its radius. He quickly turned the machine back on. Follow me, Wanyan said. The pack's leader was directly in front of Wanyan, growling at him. Wanyan stood his ground and approached the coyote without fear. I don't want any more of you guys to get hurt, but it's kill or be killed at the moment, I know. You need to walk away before many more of you die, Wanyan said to the coyote, as if he hoped the coyote would understand. The coyote growled, showing his teeth as if to intimidate him. Wanyan watched as the different scenarios played out in his head. He found one satisfying to him. The coyote leapt at Wanyan. Calculating his every move, Wanyan grabbed the coyote by the neck and held him in a chokehold. Grasping and choking, the coyote began to whine. Fussing at the coyote. I told you it didn't have to come to this, but now you are hard-headed. If I let you go, will you find a meal elsewhere? We are not your meal. Withdrawing his arm quickly not to get bitten by the animal. The coyote quickly got up from the ground and ran off, with the rest of the pack following suit. Jom counted down the timer on the instrument. 3, 2, and 1. Seriously, now you've got to tell me how the fuck you are doing that, Jom said as he turned to Wanyan. They were just hungry, Wanyan said as he got back on his horse. Jonathan said with his arms flying around. Shit, that only explains why they attacked. Hell! We know that much! Moving Jonathan's horse to the side, Jom said. That's not what we're talking about, and you know it. As Jonathan joined back in. Yeah, man, how in the hell do you know when shit is gonna hit the fan before it happens, is what he's talking about, and you know that. And what is this thing with you fussing with an animal like your ass is Dr. Doolittle? Wanyan smiled. I'll tell you tonight when we settle down. Jonathan murmured to himself out loud. I want to know that shit right now, fuck that. Wanyan turned back around toward Jonathan. Patience is not your strong suit. Is it? Wanyan knew it was time to tell the brothers about his gift. He felt that the only reason Sabaoth allowed them to see him was that they too were a part of his plan. The men gathered their belongings and headed north about 2 hours later. No one had said a word except Jonathan kept talking to himself about what had happened as they were near the edge of town. Sabaoth has given me the gift to see things before they happen, and you too can receive your special gift from him in due time, Wanyan said to the brothers. Jonathan said, We get gifts just for believing? I want to turn everything I touch into gold. Jom became mad. Your greed for money got us right where we are now. Wanyanyekova was confused about what that meant but knew it had something to do with their past, so he said nothing. I think it's time to set up that D44 doohickey thing, Wanyanyekova said. I'm hungry and tired right now and ready to sleep, Jonathan. Since you lost the race into New Mexico, you have to hunt for something to eat again tonight. Jonathan was frustrated. Who the fuck do you think you are, motherfucker? Joan sharply said. Who said the last one has to find dinner? Bitch. You lost. Carry your ass and find something to eat, motherfucker. Wanyanyekova was laughing. Yeah, go find something to eat. By the way, I'm sick of rabbit. Jonathan was stomping like a child into the desert, returning an hour later with a few rabbits as Joan was teaching Wanyanyekova how to operate some devices. This is a D44. Not a cube, it combines surface computer and nanotechnology, said Joan before he excused himself, eyeballing Jonathan out of frustration. Walking toward his brother in a harsh but calm voice, Joan said, We don't need to be who we once were. We don't need to act the way we once did. The way we were surviving. Now, it's time to live without looking behind our backs. Didn't we come all the way out here to become someone different? Jonathan raised his eyebrows and shook his head as he smiled at Joan. Joan helped Jonathan finish cleaning the rabbits while he jokingly chastised his brother. While preparing dinner, they argued for a little while about his temper, cussing, and downright disrespectfulness towards others. Wanyanyekova was meditating in a corner, so Joan wrapped up Wanyanyekova's plate and placed it in a corner, for they were unwilling to disturb him. The brothers talked about the old times while enjoying their dinner together before eventually getting tired and drifting off to sleep. Wanyanyekova woke up early, overhearing bits and pieces of their conversation. He felt the love the two brothers had for one another. He wrote, Too far to turn back now. I've been here so long, trying to reach a destination, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the years, closer now than ever before, but I'm tired, drained, and in so much pain. How can I not continue on? How can I just stop right here? In the middle of nowhere, days in front of me, light years behind, energy, food, are the substances I lack, but it's too far to turn back. He smiles as he placed his pen and pad in his bag. Seeing his dinner wrapped up in a corner, Wanyanyekova got up to get it, and, as he ate, Jonathan woke up. I'm sorry about last night. Wanyanyekova felt Jonathan's sincerity and said, I understand that adapting to a lifestyle is not the same as being told a lie all your life. For instance, if you teach a wolf to be a dog, would he not know how to be a wolf? Deep inside, he would know something is wrong, but he would never know, unless he is told that he is not a dog, but a wolf. Basically, don't change who you are. Sabaoth uses us because of who we are. Not who we are trying to be, or who we want to be. Jonathan had a bizarre look before saying, Man! What the fuck are you talking about? Wanyanyekova laughed so loud he woke up Joan. Joan said, What's so funny? Jonathan smiled. Oh, talk to your boy, talk to your boy. Wolves and dogs are what's so funny. Wanyanyekova continued to laugh, shaking his head. Y'all about ready to head out? Stretching and yawning, Joan said, Yeah. Making sure the horses had food and water, the three men continued north as Wanyanyekova talked to the brothers. A man is not ruled by his will but by the heavens is he ruled. Jonathan quickly said, There he goes again with that shit. Turning to Wanyanyekova. English? Do you know English? Speaking in proverbs and stuff, do we look Chinese? Wanyanyekova had a look on his face. Yes? Jonathan thought about what he said. Damn, we are. Well, you know what I mean. Wanyanyekova smiled. No. Frustrated, Jonathan said. Well, fuck you. Joan shook his head, and Wanyanyekova just smiled. To understand me, you must understand my God. He pulled out the Torah. The first book of the Torah is Genesis. As he began to read it to them, the three passed the book to one another before long, reading to each other, and talking and discussing different events in the book. They focused on how the children of Israel were crossing the Jordan River in the book of Exodus, and before noon, They were less than a mile from the old abandoned city of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Riding along the city's edge, Wanyanyekovu noticed the dome was partially surrounding the city, but it still looked abandoned. They continued to the entrance, but no one or nothing was in the front entrance. Jonathan looked at Wanyanyekovu. "You can touch the walls now, no one seems to be here," and then smiled. Wanyanyekovu did indeed touch the wall. The cold, smooth surface felt like water, but his hands were dry. Every spot he touched would change colors like that of a rainbow. Wanyanyekovu asked, "What are those things going into the clouds?" While staring into the clouds. "Those are buildings or apartments. It's where the people lived," Jones said as he continued. "The smaller buildings housed the different Abenians who would come to check on the people and other stuff they did from time to time. And I can't fully tell you what that was, but the buildings in El Paso were bigger." "You didn't see those?" Wanyanyekovu replied. "There was so much going on in that city, and I wasn't paying too much attention to the buildings as much as the people. Then someone started cursing at me," Jonathan said. "You got that right?" They slowly moved inside the abandoned city while Joan and Jonathan taught Wanyanyekovu about bubble cities and their technology. Las Cruces was once a bubble city about 120 years or so ago, but now, look at it, desolate and disowned. Once having a population of 3 to 5 million, it is now nothing more than a huge ghost town covered in white dust, Joan said as they slowly rode through the streets. Wanyanyekovu asked, "Why is everything white?" Amazed as he continued looking around. "White buildings, white roads, white everything. Do they think the kingdom of heaven is here?" Then he laughed. "Heaven on earth." Looking up, Wanyanyekovu could see buildings as tall as a few miles high. "How did they manage that?" he asked. Jonathan, a lover of technology but an enemy to the self-righteous Kompyutans, replied. "Simple, sucking the Abenians' dicks. These Kompyutans motherfuckers, as you call them, I call them assholes, think they are better than any human on earth. These aliens came and gave them all this shit as long as they worship them, they can have all their little heart's desires," Jones said to his little brother. "You jealous?" Jonathan quickly said. "Hell to the nah, there's just something that's just not right about both of them," Wanyanyekovu said. "It will be dark shortly, we must find somewhere to stay the night." Jonathan, pointing east of them, noticed an old hotel a few blocks up the street. There. They walked toward the hotel entrance. Wanyanyekovu checked the streets for any signs of life. "I'll check all entrances and windows of buildings surrounding this place and made sure they are locked and secured," said Wanyanyekovu as they entered the hotel. "Why?" asked Jonathan. "You'll know if something happens before it happens, might as well just leave them open." Wanyanyekovu smiled as he replied. "It's just a habit, I just want to make sure they are locked." "Bringing all the horses in," Jones said. "We don't have enough to feed all the horses tonight, but I'm sure we can find something around here." "Hell, it's a hotel. But we need to go up a level or two because these horses sure do stink." Wanyanyekovu lifted his arms and smelled himself. "We all could use a bath." Jonathan secured the back entrances and, on his way, he started looking around until he got to the kitchen. Yelling at the top of his lungs, "Yo! We just hit the jackpot, fellows!" Joan ran to see what all the fuss was about as he yelled. "Where you at?" Waving what appeared to be a flashlight. "Right here," Jonathan said. Wanyanyekovu slowly walked behind Joan, looking in all of the rooms that Joan passed. Finally arriving where the brothers were, Wanyanyekovu heard Jonathan. "There! Let there be light, ain't that what he said?" Smiling at Wanyanyekovu. Lights flickered for a moment before they came on. "This is why I chose this place. Food, no hunting tonight, plus, I'm sick of rabbit too." Jonathan walked up to a machine. "Now, how does this thing work?" He started reading the stickers and signs on the device. It was in what appeared to be multiple languages. "Here we go. Manual." As if he was talking to himself, Jonathan whispered aloud. "Chinese, Korean, Patois, Italian, Southern." Quickly, Jonathan pressed a few buttons and then started typing for a few seconds. Got it! Alright, let's try this. Jonathan clears his throat. Medium well, T-bone steak, with sour cream and chives, baked potatoes, chef's salad, no, club salad, and a shot of Jack Daniels on the rocks. The machine was silent for 2 seconds, then a soft pitched sound of a bell rang. A plastic door raised, and a stream of heat covered the entrance. What the fuck is this? Jonathan yelled. Opening the stainless steel disposable, he moved a pasted-looking substance around with a fork provided with the meal. This shit looks like pudding. Disappointed at the sight of the meal, Jonathan placed the tray down, saying, Well, who's doing the hunting today? Waninyekavu? Joam said. Taste that shit first. Jonathan tasted the substance. It tastes like what I ordered, but it's bland as hell. Looking at the spoons and forks. I'm gonna grab about 100 of these motherfuckers. They look like great weapons. As he started stabbing into the air with the fork, Waninyekavu and Joam decided to order a meal from the machine. Waninyekavu started digging in his backpack for herbs and spices that might have fallen in a corner, or he might have overlooked, to improve the taste, but they were out of luck. They all were disappointed about the meal but ate it anyway. They started to settle down for the night. Jonathan then said, Let's read that Torah for a bit. I want to see what happens to that hoe. What's her name? Raquel? Jonathan paused for a moment, then said, Yeah, Raquel. Used to date a girl back in the days named Raquel. Waninyekavu laughed. Her name was Rahab. You never cease to amaze me. Jonathan shook his shoulders. Raquel, Rahab, it doesn't matter, they both were hoes.